Hi, this is Marty. Welcome to my tutorial on Excel 2013. In this Excel 2013 tutorial, we're going to discuss creating a drop-down list, why it's important, and how to go ahead and do it. It's a pretty simple tutorial. It's going to take about 8 minutes, so follow along and enjoy. So we're going to start with a blank workbook in Excel. And it opens up our blank workbook called Book 1. And notice that we only have one sheet in our workbook right now. We're going to eventually have, in this tutorial we're going to have 3. But imagine, if you will, we're creating a medication log for a non-for-profit organization in Chicago. This is an actual project that I'm working on. And this medication log, we want to prevent errors. We don't want anybody typing in aspirin 87 milligrams because aspirin only comes in 81 milligrams or 325 milligrams. So to prevent the errors, we're going to have the medications on a separate sheet, and we're going to create a list that we're going to use for a drop-down list in our medication log, so that the user, in this case house managers, will not be able to type in anything. All they'll be able to do is choose from a drop-down menu which medication we're looking for. So you can see the importance in that. So I'm going to start by formatting my first workbook, and it's going to be pretty simple. Just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to write date for that row, and I'm going to write medications for this column. I'm going to go ahead and extend the column for A a little bit. Make it a little wider, and I'm going to make the date a little bit smaller because really there's going to be nothing in here where our dates are going to go across here. So I'm going to use the autofill feature. For those of you who don't know how to use the autofill feature, it's this little square right here in the bottom right hand corner of our rectangle of the selected cell. The selected cell is C1. You can always tell what's the selected cell because in the name box it's going to tell you, first of all, the column letter followed by the row number. So in this case, C1. This is my fill button, and you notice how the cursor changes to a plus symbol. We're going to use that in just a second. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and enter dates for June. So 6/1. You'll notice that Excel automatically formats that to 1 June. I'm going to put 6/2 in the next cell, and so on and so forth. Now, do I really need to type 3 June, 4 June, 5 June? No, because Excel does the work for you using the autofill feature. So I'm going to go ahead and select the first 2 cells, C1 and D1, and I'm going to go ahead and drag this fill button. Excel will then know that I want to create a range of dates, 3 June, 4 June, 5 June, so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and drag that across. Excel is going to go ahead and put in those dates for me automatically. When I get to June 30th, I'm good. I have to think for a minute whether June had 30 days or 31. So you notice I got my dates in there. So now how about the medications? Okay, well, first of all, let's rename our sheet. And that's simple. If you don't know how to rename a sheet in Excel, you just simply right click on it. You'll receive a menu, click rename, and then just type. So we're going to have this be the June sheet. And then I'm going to create a new sheet, and I'm going to call that July. So I'm right clicking on that, I'm going to rename that, and we're going to call that July. And you can imagine that I would have 1 tab for every month. Okay, now I need an extra tab, so this would be our 13th tab, and I'm going to right click and rename this tab, and this I'm going to call lists. And you can use this extra tab to hold all of your lists, whatever lists you need in your workbook. And I can think of multiple lists that I want in this specific worksheet, this medication log that I'm creating. But for right now, I'm only going to concern myself with the medication list for the sake of this tutorial, just so you can learn how to create a drop-down list. Okay? So back to June real quick. We can see our list. So where's our list going to be? It's going to be right here. It's going to start here under medications, and I might need to put a whole list here. Let's assume this person takes 5 or 6 different medications at different times of the day or night. So I'm going to go ahead and create a medication list. So let me just start at A3. that's arbitrary. You could start at A1. You could start at H2. It doesn't really make a difference, but you just have to create your list. So I'm going to go ahead and say aspirin, 81 milligrams. And then I'm going to say aspirin, 325 milligrams. And then I'm going to say glipizide, 10 milligrams. And I'm going to say glipizide, 2.5 milligrams. And let's say metformin, 1,000 milligrams. Let's say, I don't know, Depakote, 500 milligrams. Celexa, oops, what happened? Didn't like that. Celexa, 20 milligrams. And I don't know, metoprolol, 25 milligrams. So that's a pretty healthy list. You know, you see this person's got 7 medications listed there. I'm sure they're not going to take aspirin 81 and aspirin 325, but perhaps our list is going to be used for different clients, and one of them's taking aspirin 325, the other one's taking aspirin 81. One of them's taking glipizide 10, one of them's taking glipizide 2.5. So anyway, we've got our list, and we're going to use this list in multiple sheets. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and select the range, and in this case the range is from A3 to A10. Imagine you've got a much bigger list. You're going to select however big your list is. In this case I'm selecting A3 to A10. Once I have that range selected, and that's what it's called, the range, I'm going to right click on that and I'm going to hit define name. So I'm giving this list a name. So I'm going to simply call it meds. That's an easy name to remember. I'm going to make a comment here, medication list. Okay, that's a little comment. That's going to appear when the mouse hovers over the cell. Okay, so there's my medication list. Simple, right? Let's go back to June. And now what I want is, I want a drop-down menu to appear in all of these cells. Okay, we're also going to talk about what we would do in June 1st, June 2nd, June 3rd, maybe a yes or a no. They took the meds or they didn't take the meds, maybe an AM or a PM where they took them in the morning or whatever. There's a couple things you can do, but for right now all I'm concerning myself with is teaching you how to create a drop-down list. So how do we do it? Well, we select the cell we want to start in, and A4 is the first cell. I'm leaving A3 empty. I like to leave cells empty sometimes just for formatting purposes. You can see I can kind of minimize that and make it bigger or whatever. You know, maybe I want to put a color there. I don't know yet. But for the medication log, you want to make sure it's easy to read. But I want to put in a drop-down list here so that nobody can type in the wrong medication. Okay? Imagine that somebody might read the bottle wrong and type in the wrong medication, and then there's some kind of audit later, and you know, people are like, what is this? So we want to make sure that the house managers, the people who are responsible for the medication log, don't have to concern themselves with how to spell a medication. They can just simply pick it from a drop-down list. So to do that, I'm going to choose data to open up my data ribbon. My data ribbon is open. I have a button called data validation. I'm going to bring the drop-down list from data validation, and I'm going to simply choose data validation. Okay? So this brings up the data validation dialog window. I have 3 tabs: setting, input message, and error alert. We're going to use all of them. First of all, let's go to my settings. It's pretty simple. Do I want to allow any value? Absolutely not. The whole purpose for doing this is to make sure that the user of this spreadsheet can only choose the names that we've given them. So I'm going to say no, not any value. It's got to be from a list. I'm going to ignore blanks for now. This is something I will change later, but for now I want to be able to add all this formatting to this cell, and when I'm done adding all this data validation to the cell, I want to be able to use this fill square to drag that down and add all that formatting to all these other cells. If I have ignore blank unchecked, it won't let me do that. So I'm going to leave that checked for right now. The source. What is the source? What's the source of our list? Well, if you remember, when we right-clicked on that range of medication lists, we defined a name, and the name we defined was meds. In order to tell this cell where we can find that range, we have to type in the equal symbol, just like we would in a formula. If we were putting in a formula, always start with an equal symbol, and we can just simply put the name, and the name was simple. It was meds, M-E-D-S. Okay? So, that's simple as that. Now, I'm going to go to the input message. This is going to be something that appears when the cell is selected. Please choose a medication from the drop-down list. Okay, that's a pretty simple message. What about an error alert? Okay, well, we certainly want to stop people from moving to the cell if they type in something that isn't on our list, right? So Excel's going to let them type in that in A4. I could type in anything I want, but it's not going to let them get out of A4 without giving this error message, whatever I put here. So I'm going to type in the word error for the title, and that's going to appear in this little error window. When that pops up, it's going to say error in the title bar, and the error message is going to be, let's, for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to say Marty says choose only from drop-down list. Okay, and I use the Marty says just so we can see something here a little bit later in this tutorial. Okay, so that's the error message. Marty says choose only from the drop-down list. So we'll click OK. So you notice that our tooltip is right here. Okay, I did have the checkbox that said allow it blank, so it's going to let me move right now. And so what I want to do is I want to go ahead and drag this down, I don't know, let's say to 20, which means I would have 16 meds. That's a lot, but for the sake of this tutorial, we're just going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so now anywhere I type in here, you'll notice that that tooltip is going to pop up. Okay, so good. So what happens if I click the drop down menu? Well, guess what? There's our list of our meds, and it's getting that right from that list, which we titled meds. So if I chose select to 20 milligrams, it's going to put that in there, and it's going to allow me to go to the next cell. And if I choose aspirin, 325 milligrams, it's going to let me put that in there and go to the next cell. If I type in aspirin, 87 milligrams, and I try and go to the next cell, whoa! I spelled aspirin wrong for one thing, but here comes my error message. Remember the error in the title bar? There it is. And Marty says choose only from the drop-down list. So if I hit cancel, it's going to erase that and then allow me to choose aspirin 81 milligrams from the drop-down list. So that is my tutorial. I hope it was helpful. I hope you can see the reason for using drop-down lists and why it's important. And I hope you can see how easy it is. Remember, it's under data, data validation. When you choose data validation, you'll get your data validation window, and you can enter all your information in using these three tabs: setting, input message, and error alert. Thank you for visiting my Excel 2013 tutorial. I hope you'll come back and look at some of our other tutorials. It's been a pleasure. Bye.